Picture this. It's the 12th century on the harsh, sweeping grasslands of the Mongolian steppes. A boy is born grasping a blood clot in his tiny fist. According to local folklore, this meant one thing. He was destined to become a powerful leader. That boy's name was Temujin, but you probably know him by his later title, Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. Now, when most people hear that name, they picture a ruthless barbarian sweeping across continents. And while his armies were undeniably brutal, Temujin's real story is much more complicated and fascinating. Today we are diving into the life of Genghis Khan, a man who built the largest land empire in history, not just through conquest, but through sheer innovation, adaptability, and vision. Early life and hardship. Temujin's early life was anything but royal. When he was just 9 years old, his father, Yasuke, was poisoned by a rival tribe, the Tatars, under the guise of sharing a conciliatory meal. Without a strong leader, his tribe abandoned Temujin, his mother Holun, and his siblings to fend for themselves on the harsh steppes. They were thrust into absolute poverty, surviving by fishing and foraging for wild roots. Sibling rivalry even took a deadly turn when a young Temujin actually killed his older half-brother Begta in a dispute over a stolen fish. It is safe to say it was a rough childhood. Things got even worse when Temujin was captured by a rival clan, the Taichud. They locked him in a kangwe, a heavy wooden yoke around his neck to humiliate him. But Temujin was a survivor. During a feast, he managed to knock out his captor and hide in a freezing river until he could make his daring escape back to his family. Rise to power and Bort. At age 16, Temujin married Borte, a young woman from an allied tribe. But their honeymoon phase was cut short when Borte was kidnapped by the rival Merkit tribe. Temujin wasn't about to let that slide. He rallied thousands of warriors, enlisting the help of an old family ally, Togrul, and his own childhood blood brother, Jamuka. Together, they crushed the Merkits and rescued Borte. After the rescue, Temujin and Jamuka's camp stayed together. But a massive ideological rift began to grow between the two best friends. Jamuka was a traditionalist. He believed leadership should be strictly based on noble birth and aristocratic hierarchy. Temujin, moulded by a life of hardship, championed a radical new idea, meritocracy. He did not care about your bloodline. If you were a skilled blacksmith, a brave horseman, or fiercely loyal, he would promote you. The tension reached a boiling point. It was actually Borte, acting as a crucial political advisor, who told Temujin it was time to split from Jamuka in the middle of the night. This split sparked a bitter rivalry that ultimately ended with Temujin defeating Jamuka and uniting the Mongol tribes. The Empire and Innovations. In 1206, a grand assembly called a Kuriltai officially bestowed him with the title Genghis Khan. But how did he build his massive empire? Through brilliant and sometimes ruthless organization. Genghis organized his military into units of 10, 100, and 1,000, breaking down old tribal loyalties. He established a sophisticated communications network using flags, smoke, and burning torches, and famously utilized a massive, well-organized supply and courier system across the steppes. And here is the twist. Despite his fearsome reputation, Genghis Khan was surprisingly progressive in how he managed his conquered lands. His empire was governed by a legal code called the Yasa, which forbade theft and blood feuds. He even granted tax exemptions to religious leaders and doctors. In fact, Genghis Khan realized that religious freedom was great for business and empire building. His empire allowed Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, and Taoists to practice freely, though there were a few intense exceptions, like temporarily banning Islamic halal and Jewish kosher butchering practices to force cultural assimilation. But overall, this era of unprecedented connectivity and trade across Eurasia became known as the Pax Mongolica. Death and mystery, Genghis Khan died in 1227, but he left us with one final enduring mystery, his grave. Legend says he asked to be buried without any markings. Folklore claims that his funeral escort killed anyone they crossed on the way to the burial site, and that a river was diverted or horses were stampeded over the grave to keep it hidden forever. To this day, despite modern satellite searches and drone expeditions near the sacred Burkhan Khaldun mountain, his tomb has never been definitively found. Genghis Khan wanted to rest in secret, and 8 centuries later, he is still getting his way. From an abandoned outcast foraging for roots to the ruler of the largest contiguous empire in history, Genghis Khan's life is a testament to adaptability, vision, and the brutal realities of the 12th century steppes. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which historical figure we should cover next.